Hello and welcome to another edition of the Are You Ready Wrestling podcast here on Newport City Radio. Last week's podcast, if you listened to it, well done to you. A mammoth hour and a half, epic, probably one of the longest we've done since we covered WrestleMania, but it was one of our best if you haven't done so already. We previewed All Out and spoke. Did we preview All Out or review All In?
We reviewed All In and reviewed Bash in Berlin.
We did indeed. We reviewed both of them, and
we did mention All Out. A little bit, just a little bit.
There's too many pay-per-views going around and premium live events that we can't get our head around these things. But yeah, there's so much wrestling. We always say it, but
the past 2 weeks has been loads.
Past 2 weeks, it's like WrestleMania all over again. I know All Out is AEW's WrestleMania, but we've had Bash in Berlin, we've had All Out, we had All In, we had NXT this past weekend, which was a great show, and we're on the road to Bad Blood, and there's just so much going on at the moment. It's hard to keep on top of things, but here on the Are You Ready Wrestling podcast, we're the only podcast where you can keep on top of everything with expert analysis and breakdowns, as always, courtesy of the man sat to my right, the mega mind behind all things pro wrestling at Newport City Radio, Curtis. Hello.
Hello.
So, yeah, how much wrestling have you watched this week, and how much more can you take before you have a wrestling breakdown?
I've watched so much wrestling in the past week, and especially the past 2 weeks. I don't think I can count the amount of hours I've watched. Bash in Berlin, All In, Dynamite and Collision, NXT, Raw and SmackDown, All Out. It's just so much wrestling. I mean, I'm loving it because it gives us brilliant topics to talk about on the podcast, but there is loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of wrestling to talk about and discuss and break down on today's episode.
There is indeed. We're going to cross over to the AEW divide because they had another pay-per-view last night emanating from Chicago called All Out, which obviously is a follow-up to All In, so we'll talk about that after we talk all things WWE. And coming out of Bash in Berlin on the road to Bad Blood, there was so much, I think, hype almost around WWE going into Bad Blood. There's going to be so many top stars on that card. You know, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Rhea Ripley, maybe Damian Priest, Finn Balor. We're going to see maybe Cody Rhodes, Solo Sikoa, Roman Reigns maybe. We'll come on to that a little bit later. But I think first and foremost, Curtis, we'll start at the very start of the week. Monday Night Raw, opening the show, Wade Barrett to the ring, introduces the new broadcast play-by-play commentator on Monday Night Raw, Joe Tessitore.
Yes.
Who, for me, is quite legendary because he's the voice of... Have you ever played the game Fright Night on Xbox?
No.
It's the last actual boxing game that was released, and there's one coming out at the end of this year, but he's the commentator in that.
Yeah.
So for me, he's synonymous with that game. I'm sure he'll be very synonymous with you out there listening. But yeah, I think he's done pretty much every major sport in America. Boxing, he's done NFL, he's done... If you can name a sport, there's a good chance that Joe Tessitore's done it.
Yeah.
He was at WrestleMania earlier this year working for ESPN. I'm not sure if he's still working for them as well. I know the NFL season has just started. That's why Pat McAfee has stepped away from WWE because he's off doing the college game day stuff over there. But I just want to kick off this week's podcast and this week's discussion talking about how you thought he did, because this is his first time covering pro wrestling or commentating on pro wrestling. Like I say, he was there for ESPN at the start of the year at WrestleMania, but he was just kind of like your typical sports journalist. He was just up there, and he had a couple of people with him who he was interviewing and whatnot. For his first attempt to commentate in a pro wrestling show, what did you make of it?
It was good. It's something that he hasn't really done, as a sense of, yeah, he may have done some journalism behind it and done some stuff over WrestleMania for ESPN, but he hasn't done anything like commentating for a 2 to 3 hour live show, live broadcasted on USA Network. So for his first time, I think he done well, and I'm sure it's going to get a lot more funnier. Because we always see, especially with Pat McAfee, when he's commentating, he always does some silly stuff, which makes the show funnier. Hopefully we see more of that. Hopefully with the Netflix deal as well, things change a little bit. But yeah, for his first attempt and his first show, he done really well, and I can't wait to hear his voice over Raw over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and something I did notice is I think towards the end he got a little bit fatigued.
Yeah.
But you're always going to get that in your first, whatever you do in life, your first couple of weeks, as you adapt to it, you get quite tired towards the end. Especially mentally. Go on.
It is quite hard though, because obviously it was his first time, and it's like there is time to prepare for it, because obviously he knew the date that he was starting, but like you can research and do everything about it, but when you're in the moment, it all just goes from your head. It's adrenaline kicks in, and it's just
so there was adrenaline in his soul on Monday night.
It's funny you say that, but yeah, it's something that not many people get to do, but yeah, I think he done a good job.
And again, something else that I'm sure he'll pick up over the next couple of weeks and months as he goes forward is just some of the moves and some of the more basic wrestling terms and just the vocabulary. But yeah, I agree with you. I think for his first attempt, you could tell that he's an esteemed broadcaster over there, or esteemed commentator and journalist. I think he brought a level of, we've been seeing them more recently go to a very much sports-based presentation, as if you're watching, especially around the PLEs, if you're watching like a UFC pay-per-view, or you're watching an NFL game as they build up to that, or whatever, at the beginning, the 2-hour kickoff show, where they're outside the building, or rather than say like ringside. I think that's a really cool touch.
Yeah, because and it's more stepped up as well. They break down all the big matches, and I think
they were doing that anyway, but
they do it more in depth, and they show a lot more video packages, and the video packages have stepped up ever since Triple H has taken over.
They've always been excellent.
They've always been excellent, but I think that they've taken it to a new level with multiple things. But I love how they interact with the fans as well. They're not dead professional, and they're not dead set in like their character as in a journalist and stuff. And they especially with Big E being involved in it massively now ever since his injury on Monday Night Raw, he stepped up and done something that's completely different from what he's normally used to doing. But he is a born entertainer, and he does make the kickoff show very, very funny. And then they have obviously Michael Cole, Jackie Redmond, and all different stuff like that. Different people on there as well. So I do like the kickoff shows, because before I didn't really watch the kickoff shows as much. But now I do sit there, and I do enjoy watching the kickoff shows for every PLE that they do.
Yeah, and going back to that sports-based presentation, there's not, over the past couple of weeks anyway, I've noticed, or past premium live events, they've seamlessly transitioned into the PLE.
Yeah.
And out of it as well. Jackie Redmond is talking, or say like Cody is still in the ring, and you're still seeing live footage of Cody in the ring and celebrating, or Gunther, as we've seen before. And then Kathy Kelly got in the ring and interviewed Gunther, and compare that to what we seen with AEW last night with the end of their 0 hour. They had a couple of matches on there, and then they kept saying about how you could join us on pay-per-view, which I understand. And then they said, "Oh, this is the 0 hour. Thanks for watching," and then it ended.
Yeah,
and then obviously you have to switch then to the pay-per-view itself.
There's no real good transition.
There's no good... No. And that's something that WWE, again, going back to that sports presentation, or sports-based presentation, look and feel, which they've been going for. And I think that's been really boosted by the TKO group, obviously. Yeah. With their involvement in the UFC, they've taken that from stride to stride. I think there's a documentary coming out about the UFC's rise I'd seen some on social media, so yeah, they've got experts in that field about how to do the best kind of sports-based presentation, because the UFC is the biggest, or one of the biggest fighting organisations in the world.
I'd say it's the biggest. It's got so many different fights for so many different categories, and for fighting, it's joint between that and boxing. So yeah.
Yeah, but with boxing, you've got different promoters and whatever.
Yeah.
But with
UFC
MMA, I know you got like your Bellators of the world and your PFLs, but you've just got one major company.
Yeah, the TKO group, the merge between UFC and WWE, is good because we've seen obviously Ronda Rousey and Brock Lesnar,
improvements.
CM Punk come from the UFC to.
We don't talk about his run to the UFC.
We've seen that they come from UFC to WWE, and it's two completely different things, but it's still combat sport. So I think it's really good, and the TKO group have invested even more into WWE, and the production and the presentation for each show is just stepped up massively. And it makes it more enjoyable, and it attracts more to the shows and the fans, and who knows what could happen when this Netflix deal comes in January, how big things could turn around and how different things could be. We could, as Adam always mentions it on the podcast, we could transition into a 2.0 of the Attitude Era.
Not that word. It's been, how long's it been? Probably about 3 months since the last mention of that word on this podcast.
The last mention was Clash at the Castle live.
Well, you mentioned it about 6,000 times.
Yeah.
So yeah, Joe Tessitore made his Monday Night Raw debut as a commentator. I think he made an appearance at SummerSlam, and he's been involved in WrestleMania, but looking forward to seeing him on Monday Night Raw, where this week we'll see Joe Tessitore along with a legend. They're currently on a bit of a Canada tour. I think they always do one about this time of year before they do a European live events tour towards October time. Yeah, they're in Calgary, the home of Monday Night Raw this week. And it's also the home of the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be, Bret Hart. And he will be making an appearance on Monday Night Raw this week.
He will indeed.
Indeed he will. What do you see Bret Hart doing? Obviously CM Punk has made no secret that he's a big Bret Hart fan. Do we see Bret being involved to further the feud between Drew McIntyre and CM Punk?
I think so too.
Or what else could the legend get involved with?
It depends on how they book the show. If they're going to get CM Punk to be involved in anything with Bret Hart, could Bret Hart do a promo, and as he's finishing, CM Punk comes out and kind of says he's a big fan or something?
If he's okay after the
if he's
Raw just gone.
Yeah, if he's alive and kicking. But
we've seen 3 murders on wrestling this week. CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, and Swerve Strickland.
Yeah, we'll get into the AEW side of things a bit later, but CM Punk did get killed. Brutally attacked. But stuff with Bret Hart and CM Punk and how they're going to work it, I don't know. But what we do know, Luke, is Bret Hart will be appearing in some form or some shape on WWE TV this Monday.
Yes.
Night Raw.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to seeing this. Really, really looking forward. There's so much that, like I say, CM Punk, I would assume that Bret Hart would be involved in that. Punk has spoken no ends about, as I say, how big of a Bret Hart fan he is, so I see him getting involved.
And expanding this storyline even more.
Yes, as we move towards Bad Blood and the supposed Hell in a Cell match that we're going to see.
You just mentioned CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. Should we talk about the segment that happened this past Monday?
We have to.
We do indeed. The attack on CM Punk.
Yeah, CM Punk was cutting a promo, obviously beat Drew McIntyre at Bash in Berlin, got up on the table and was kind of celebrating with the fans, said he wants to go after Gunther in the World Heavyweight title. He's moved past Drew McIntyre. He's got his bracelet back. He sees that being the end. To come out the ring, or come out under the ring.
Under the ring.
Under the ring.
Which
was a hooded figure who was Drew McIntyre. We all could see when he set up. He didn't have to take the hood down to, some wrestlers, you're like, who's that? And then they take their hood down or their mask off and you're like, oh.
Yeah, whereas we all know if a hooded wrestler is going to attack CM Punk at this moment in time, we all know it's going to be Drew McIntyre. You mentioned about the bracelet, though. You mentioned about the bracelet, which seems to be... This bracelet seems to be... I remember Drew McIntyre speaking to Chris Van Vliet on one of his podcast episodes about this bracelet is, at this moment in time, I don't want to say the biggest prize in pro wrestling, but it's the biggest thing in wrestling at the moment that CM Punk and Drew McIntyre are going for. So...
The most valuable prize in pro wrestling, Curtis, you said about that being, yes, the bracelet, which CM Punk did so much to get control over, get back on Bash in Berlin. Yeah, but for very long, 3 days, if that.
2 days.
Yeah, it would have been. It would have been Sunday going into the Monday, or the Saturday going into the Monday. But, yeah, he doesn't have any more.
He does not. It's gone. Gone. Very gone.
Gone.
It's just gone. It's disappeared.
Because Drew McIntyre got hold of it again. He assaulted CM Punk. I think he hit about 3 or 4 claymores on him. I.e. CM Punk in 3 or 4 GTSs, go to sleeps on McIntyre. And then...
He got hold of the bracelet.
Chucked it. Grabbed it. Ripped it apart.
And in the nicest way possible, put it down CM Punk's mouth.
Yeah, he put the beads down there. Yeah. I mean, this has been an integral part of the storyline so far. It's interesting. We talk about like the finer details in pro wrestling, but again, this is finer details. Something like that bracelet has been integral to this feud.
Yeah. This bracelet is... Forget about CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. Forget about the names of how big they are. This bracelet is clearly... It's like a title. Do you know what it kind of reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of the 24/7 title. Weirdly. Because it keeps changing hands, but now it's gone. Just like the 24/7 title. I know it's completely different, but like it's kind of like R-Truth in the 24/7 title. That was kind of his thing. He always had it. He won it like countless amount of times. CM Punk and Drew McIntyre have been fighting not only because they've costed each other multiple times. Well, CM Punk has costed Drew multiple times. But yeah, this bracelet is no longer a bracelet.
It's not.
It's somewhere in some canvas in some place in the world.
It's somewhere, or parts of it are somewhere.
Somewhere.
But at Fanatics Fest a couple of weeks ago, I think fans, when they had a photo or a meet and greet with Punk, there were quite a few bracelets made and given to him.
Yeah.
So I'm sure...
Could we see CM Punk come out on Raw, leading up to Bad Blood, to obviously... as we predicted and we allude to, the Hell in a Cell main event of Bad Blood, which we think will be CM Punk and Drew McIntyre in the finale between their feud. Could CM Punk come out on Monday Night Raw and say, that bracelet that you broke wasn't the real thing, it was one of the things that the fans made?
Well, a fan did make that bracelet for him originally.
Yeah, but could
it was WWE WrestleMania World, or...
But could it be like another one that they made for, say, Fanatics Fest? Could he come out and just use the excuse that wasn't the original bracelet that was made, and kind of...
No, I think that would take away from what they've done so far, in my opinion.
So, how do you think they're going to get to Bad Blood then? What do you think's next? So, say if you could book what would happen on Monday Night Raw between CM Punk and Drew McIntyre.
Well, Monday Night Raw, Bret Hart comes out to cut a promo about whatever, but Drew McIntyre interrupts.
Bret Hart,
yes. And then he'll talk about CM Punk and Punk's almost admiration for Bret, and he's going to do to Bret what he did to Punk, so Punk can suffer even more. Key call to personality. He'll run down to the ring, and then he'll challenge
Drew to a Hell in a
Cell match in 3 weeks' time.
Do you think that'll be the first match announced for Bad
Atlanta.
Blood? Do you think that'll be the first match announced for Bad Blood?
We already have a match announced, don't we?
Not that I know of.
Should we check on our good old friends at Wikipedia?
I don't believe there is no match that's been announced for Bad Blood as of now. There might be, but I don't believe there is. We'll check our good friends at Wikipedia, though, if you could get into your laptop.
There we go.
Bad Blood 2024.
Do you want the Taylor Swift song?
Absolutely not.
Do you think that'd be the theme? We see, like, quite often they have different, obviously, themes for pay-per-views. Do you think Bad Blood will work well with the pay-per-view Bad Blood?
Absolutely not.
I mean, CM Punk did say it's the Taylor Swift for men.
Absolutely not. I'm sorry, but in between matches, if I hear Taylor Swift, I'm sorry, WWE, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Is there no matches announced?
None.
I was correct then. I was correct.
But obviously, we're going to see a Cody Rhodes match. It's his hometown. He's from Atlanta. So you'd imagine he'd have a match. Obviously, CM Punk and McIntyre.
Do you think Cody will open Bad Blood again? Because we've seen at Bash in Berlin, he opened Bash in Berlin with
and
Kevin
Clash.
Owens and Clash. The problem I have is Cody Rhodes is the undisputed WWE champion. He's got the main belt in professional wrestling for WWE. Opening pay-per-views, I don't know how I feel about it. 1 or 2, understandably. But if he opens a third pay-per-view in a row with a major WWE title...
It wouldn't be 3 in a row because we had SummerSlam.
Well, SummerSlam as well, sorry. But if he opens 3 major pay-per-views, yes, he gets first dibs on the crowd, and it is his hometown. It's a difficult one because we think that CM Punk and Drew McIntyre will main event Bad Blood in the Hell in a Cell.
Deservedly main event.
They deserve it, but it depends who Cody's opponent is. I'm
going to chuck 2 names at you, and you tell me where you think. Solo Sikoa.
No.
Kevin Owens.
No.
If he is having a match, Roman Reigns.
There's a good chance why that could happen. Do you want to know why?
The original tribal chief against the actual tribal chief.
Well, it's announced for next week's SmackDown, Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa in a steel cage match.
Indeed, their first show on the USA Network.
Obviously, no one's going to be underneath the ring.
No.
No one's going to be inside the steel cage.
Well, Cody Rhodes and Solo Sikoa will be.
Other than them two.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean. There will be no Jacob Fatu. There will be no Tama Tonga. There will be no Tonga Loa. There will be no Jimmy Uso. There will be no Roman Reigns.
No Kevin or Randy.
There will be nothing. It is a solid one-on-one. There's no way Cody's going to lose the title on SmackDown. There is literally no way. And if they did that, then poor booking.
I mean, we did see the way that WWE started on Fox with Kofi Kingston against Brock Lesnar. I think the less said there, the better.
Yeah. Squash match it was indeed.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a difficult one because if you could pick Cody's next opponent for Bad Blood, excluding Kevin Owens and Solo Sikoa, who would it be and why?
Well, there's storyline. There's no one.
True, but they had no storyline with... They didn't really have much of a storyline with Kevin Owens. Other than Kevin helping him out, but there was no heel turn. So they were still friends, supposedly.
Supposedly, but from all intents and purposes, Kevin was about to turn on Cody.
was about to, but he didn't.
He didn't. If you give it an extra second, he would have.
Who knows? But it's not going to be Solo Sikoa at Bad Blood. I think there's well, here's another thing to throw at you. Roman Reigns is scheduled to appear on USA Network on Friday Night SmackDown. This coming Friday.
He was out on the weekend. I believe I messaged you and said he's on.
Yeah, he was doing a live
Q&A kind of thing.
Press conference
an interview.
It was announced by USA Network that he's going to appear. Obviously, we've seen him tackle Solo Sikoa. Could we see Roman Reigns' first promo on Friday? Where he actually picks up a mic and says something.
Maybe.
Because it's the opening.
But if it would be advertised, in my opinion. Because...
What, advertised as a promo? Because he is...
No, advertised that he'll be there.
He is there, though. It's been advertised that he's there.
No, I mean, WWE say... You know where they normally, like... On the SmackDown before, they say... Next week on SmackDown, we'll see Solo Sikoa against Cody Rhodes and Steel Cage. They would have said it there, but they didn't. I mean, he could always come out as a surprise, as we've seen with The Rock before or whatever.
The thing is,
advertised.
USA Network advertised it. They've said he's there.
Have they? They
put it on their social media. Well, I believe they have. I seen it somewhere on some social media, on Instagram, I believe, that Roman Reigns will appear on...
If you say his name, will he appear? Is he Joe Hendry?
I believe in
the
Jeff
Tribal
Hardy.
Chief.
I believe in Roman Reigns. I believe in Joe Hendry.
I believe in Curtis.
There was a post, I don't know where I seen it, but...
You could be right, I'm just having a quick look, I can't see anything.
But my phone's off at the minute, but go on to WWE Net website and see who's advertised. Go on the website on Google and see who's advertised. Who's advertised for SmackDown this week? Because I'm 100% sure, well 90% sure Roman Reigns will appear.
100 to 90.
I believe he will appear on SmackDown.
It's their first show on the USA Network, isn't it? So
they're going to get the big names in.
Yes, like they did last time. I think they had Charlotte Flair there, obviously Brock Lesnar, The Rock.
Could we see Charlotte Flair return? Because
I don't think she's ready. I don't think she's being cleared to return.
I've seen some stuff on social media, and apparently Jimmy Uso and Charlotte Flair are both ready to return at some point in the next few weeks. Could Charlotte Flair appear and just say welcome to SmackDown? Not like a welcome to SmackDown, but just say in the crowd.
No, that'll be a Triple H thing. I think if anyone is to come out and welcome people to the USA Network, that'll be a Triple H thing.
I don't think it'll just be Triple H though. Stephanie McMahon.
Yeah.
We've seen her appear on shows in the crowd. I think she might appear and come out and say welcome, along with Triple H.
That's definitely... She hasn't been at TV.
It's a 50-50. The last time she was officially on proper TV was...
She's been at SummerSlam and WrestleMania. I don't think we've seen her at TV. Apart from the Hall of Fame, obviously, the night before WrestleMania.
I thought she was ringside. Well, she was ringside at SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Because she hugged CM Punk after his match. But yeah. Do you think Roman Reigns will appear? That's the main question. Do you think he will appear on Friday?
Potentially to even the odds.
Against Solo Sikoa?
Yes, because Kevin Owens and a mystery partner. I wonder who that mystery partner is. Is it going to be the same person he's been teaming with for pretty much the whole year? Who's recently lost a world title match on Bash in Berlin?
Or might not be Yeet.
No, I'm on about Randy Orton.
I know you were on about Randy Orton. It may not be Yeet, but it might be No Yeet. Jimmy Uso.
What, to team with Kevin Owens?
Possibly.
No, it wouldn't make sense.
But I'm referring to after the steel cage match between Cody and Solo, there's a good chance that the Bloodline are going to come out and attack Cody.
Well, not even that. I think with the way we've seen Jacob Fatu
Do you know what I think could happen?
I think, sorry to jump in there, I think what we could see potentially, and we always love fantasy booking on this podcast, we always go into a rabbit hole of ideas. I think that Cody will win, but before he wins, we'll see the Bloodline.
Do you know what I could see
We'll
happening?
see the Bloodline. I could see someone like Jacob Fatu just be Jacob Fatu and try and climb the ring, or
Do you know what?
open the door, whatever, and then obviously you'll need people to even the odds.
You mentioned about Jacob Fatu possibly climbing the steel cage. There's a good chance of this. Say Cody versus Solo is going to happen.
Is
at Bad
Cody
Blood.
going to hit another cutter off the top of the cage like he did in AEW?
No, not that. I think both of them could be down. The Bloodline are out. Jacob Fatu climbs the cage and does a frog splash
From the top of the cage.
from the top of the cage, lands on Cody. That gives a DQ,
Mm-hmm.
which could then lead to Cody versus Solo 3 at Bad Blood.
You just said you didn't want to see it.
I don't want to see it, but with the way it's going, it's probably going to happen. I don't think Roman Reigns and Solo will happen at Bad Blood. There's a chance, but I don't think it will. I think they're going to save that for Survivor Series, and then after Survivor Series, do the solo do the one-on-one matches. Who knows? Could they do the one-on-one matches, and then slowly there's a little bit of a beatdown, and then they add people in eventually to lead to Survivor Series, and then they have.
I mean, with 2 months away from Survivor Series,
you have your.
they need to start moving the story. And this goes into our next thing. The Rock is supposedly returning within the next 2 months, which would make sense for Survivor Series coming up. In 2 months' time in Canada, if Jimmy is to return, the War Games match is going to be Bloodline on Bloodline. It needs to happen relatively soon.
Because the thing is, though, they've got a lot. They've got a lot to do. They've got to reunite the Usos.
Yes.
They've got to reunite Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso. They've somehow got to bring Sami Zayn back into it.
If we think that
If
Sami Zayn...
if Sami will be involved in it, which I think he will.
Yeah.
They've somehow got to have Roman Reigns to have his first promo in the next 2 weeks. They need to somehow bring The Rock into it. Obviously, they don't have to do too much work on the bloodline of forming of Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, and Jacob Fatu as of right now, because they're a dominant force and they are destroying anything and everything in their path. But I think the end will be Survivor Series.
Yeah.
I think the babyfaces will win. It's fantasy booking at its finest.
That is for the Survivor Series preview, though, Curtis. What we are talking about now, though, is what we think is going to happen on Friday on SmackDown. Do you see any other big names appearing? We just mentioned maybe Roman Reigns appearing. You think we could see Charlotte Flair? Even though I don't think so. Well, any other big names you see potentially showing up?
So we've got Bret Hart, I think Roman...
That's on Raw, though, not SmackDown.
Oh, sorry, my bad, SmackDown. Roman Reigns being one of them.
Yeah.
Big names. Triple H, he'll come out.
Yep.
I think Stephanie McMahon could come out.
Yeah.
Or be ringside.
Yeah.
Obviously you've got Cody versus Solo, so the bloodline will be there. And for surprises...
If any. Solid show.
It'll be them. Another one to throw into the mix for Raw is Alexa Bliss.
Yeah, but I'm just purely talking about SmackDown. It's their first show on the USA Network. There's a lot of hype around this. Obviously, new 5-year deal on the USA.
Raw's not
it's
on-
USA Week. Oh, it's WWE Week on USA. So you'd think that they'd load it up with big names and big stars. You'd think Roman Reigns, potentially Charlotte Flair, Stephanie McMahon.
But Raw's moving as well.
Yeah, but that's in January. But what I want to talk about what's coming up on this Friday SmackDown.
But isn't it? I thought it was moving. That's NXT, isn't it?
NXT is moving in October. So I think if you're in America, there's a space of a month where everything WWE content is on USA Network.
Yeah.
That's SmackDown and NXT
Yeah.
for the time being, anyway.
Well, everything will be. A question for you, and it's about the SmackDown and Raw and kind of everything to do with TV. It's about this Netflix deal. Obviously, we know Raw's going to Netflix, and obviously now we know SmackDown is going to be on USA Network for the next 5 years or so. And then, okay, that answers my question. Everything's answered my question. Me thinking about it. Never
There
mind.
we go. There we go. Just think about things, Curtis, and you'll get the answer. So yeah, that's WWE for the week. There's a lot going on. A lot on SmackDown. Obviously, they showed a really good package of the last 5 years on USA. I did notice that quite a lot of it was the past 2 years since Triple H took over. So the whole Bloodline stuff, the whole Sami Zayn and the Bloodline stuff, and then we've seen like Cody and The Rock and...
Another thing just to quickly speak about, and I do want to get your thoughts on this, because we've been waiting for his return for a good few weeks now. He returns and loses in 5 seconds. What is your thoughts on that? Because
On who?
Giovanni Vici.
He doesn't have his NXT presentation, which I was very disappointed in, because when he was in NXT, obviously Gunther and Marcel Bartel, as he was known at the time, now known as Ludwig Kaiser, was called up to the main roster, and Vinci was left in NXT. You know, that whole same gimmick, this whole luxury Italian thing works well. I thought his character was really, really good, one of the best characters in NXT, and then obviously he got called up again.
How do you feel about him losing in 5 seconds? I disagree with it massively, because
Like I say, his presentation in NXT was really, really cool. The music, the lights, it did really suit the character. He didn't necessarily have that on Raw or on SmackDown. Even this week has been hyped for a couple of weeks that, you know, he's coming back and he's got this gimmick, and it was kind of highlighted what the gimmick is. And then he comes back and loses in 5 seconds. I want to, if I can quickly, go to a report that came out from WrestleVotes, who are always very good and very accurate with their reporting, who say that they were told that a few key figures within creative absolutely hated the direction of the Giovanni Vinci angle, and I can see why. As I mentioned, his presentation probably wasn't as slick as his NXT one was, and yeah, I suppose it's a case of letting things play out, as quite a few people online have said that. So if 2 or 3 weeks' time we're sat here and we're still having these conversations, then maybe there's cause for concern, but, you know, this is just the start of a story. We don't see an opening act of a film or first episode of a TV series where they're setting the scene and introducing people and whatever.
Them hyping it up so much just for him to come back and like not even have like
on week one
and not even have like a decent, not like a brilliant match, but like a few minutes, say. But to lose in 5 seconds is just it.
It's a story, Curtis.
I guess
they're letting it play out.
I get it's a story, but it's poor. I don't agree with him. If they didn't promote it as much as they did and didn't hype it up as much as they did, fair enough. But the amount that they've promoted it and hyped it up for it to just be the start of it, just for him to lose in 5 seconds, I just disagree with it. I just don't see the reasoning behind it, and the fact that key figures in the head of creative and
they didn't name who the key figures, but just key figures.
Well, the key figures in the creative side of WWE disagree with it massively. That doesn't look good for the start of the story.
Well, absolutely hated, I think was the words used.
Well, absolutely hated. That doesn't. Does that sound good to you? No. Whereas my point being of that is, they've been on point with their creative storylines at the moment. They've been brilliant with it. Look at the CM Punk and Drew McIntyre stuff. One of the best storylines that they've had in a good while. I'm going to say storyline of the year. Without a doubt, I'm going to say it's storyline of the year. But 5 seconds for a return. Just
let it play out.
It just. Do you know what? Do you know what? It kind of. You mentioned it earlier. Obviously, talking about title changes on opening shows and stuff. If I'm correct, you mentioned about
squash match to start the year. Unexpected squash match.
Start the
era on Fox, and an unexpected squash match to end the era on Fox.
Yeah, it's kind of a bit. I don't know. If you put the two together, it's a bit. It's the word I'm going to use to describe the whole situation is interesting.
Interesting. Something that was also interesting last night, as we sit here and record this, emanated from Chicago, or just outside of Chicago. AEW presented their most recent pay-per-view. We went all in 2 weeks ago. I'm gonna cough. And they went all out last night. We're just gonna pick out some highlights from this because they went on until about 5 o'clock in the morning. It was 4 hours of wrestling plus the post-show media scrum from Tony Khan, which is interesting. We'll start with that, actually. Because when they were in London, obviously we were fortunate enough to be a part of that post-show media scrum press conference, whatever you want to call it. You know, we've seen Danielson, we've seen Ospreay, we've seen
Mariah May.
Soraya came out for a hook. We've seen
multiple
Mercedes Moné and Camille. Last night was just Tony Khan.
Yeah, it was. I don't know why they've done that.
He said that the wrestlers were tired. I understand. You know, they've flown to Cardiff, and then they went to London for their biggest show of the year. You imagine all the media commitments and everything around that, you know, and then...
But could have they...
You go back to America only for a pay-per-view 2 weeks after.
I understand it. I do get it. They're going to be very, very, very tired. They've done a lot of media in the past couple of weeks, especially leading up to All In, and the amount of interviews they would have had to do was probably quite a lot. And then just to not only performing in the ring is hard enough, then having to do the amount of interviews and socializing and all of that. But what can you expect when you're one of the biggest wrestlers in the world? When you're in the lead major company of wrestling, what can you expect when where the best wrestle? But
as it says on your shirt,
as it does says on my shirt, it does
which
indeed.
You proudly wear.
Oh yeah, I proudly wear it. Every time we do this podcast, I always wear a wrestling top.
Mark,
there is a mark on the podcast. Me and Luke always wear wrestling tops, but
so yes, as we were just saying, like. You were saying about them doing media and...
Yeah, they've been doing loads and loads of media, which is understandable because they're tired. But you're getting paid big money to do these things. I get you're tired, but they could have got Ricochet in. They could have got Will Ospreay in. They could have got multiple people in. They could have got Jon Moxley to be in the press conference to describe his actions. There's so many things they could have done that they didn't. Like Jon Moxley didn't appear at All In, wasn't at All In, wasn't in London. He come back on last week's Dynamite.
Champaign, Illinois.
They could have used Jon Moxley, but it is what it is. Tony Khan obviously come out and said the wrestlers are tired, so it's just him appearing and doing the Q&A. So a very, very short media scrum for AEW normally.
I think he still talked about 40 minutes, probably about Fulham.
Oh, well, he does.
Up to Fulham.
He does love his Fulham, doesn't he? He does love London, and he does love the UK wrestling show. So big up Tony Khan for that.
Yeah, we're only going to pick out the key highlights. You haven't seen it yet. I know you're planning on watching it.
Yeah, busy week, very, very busy week, splitting up personal life and work life. So I'm going to go home.
It's a tough work-life balance, isn't it?
It is, actually. Doing it all for this podcast, mate, and all for this radio station, social media market.
So we've seen one of the most anticipated matches going into All In was MJF against Will Ospreay for the American title, which Ospreay won, and a part of the finish for that.
So Luke, we were talking about AEW briefly, and we're gonna.
We were talking about MJF, obviously. He lost his American title to Will Ospreay, and the finish of that came full circle from where the feud started.
Yeah.
With MJF being Daniel Garcia costing MJF. Obviously, we know that MJF did heel on Garcia and really violently took him out after his match for the international title against Ospreay. Came full circle at All In, and at All Out, we've seen those two go out to open the card. I think it was a really good choice to open the card. And yeah, MJF won, but did he win though? He got the pinfall. But afterwards, Garcia wasn't necessarily done with him. He didn't really like the result. And then he proceeded to just attack him and hit a quite dangerous looking move off the top rope. I think it's the same move that MJF hit him with that took him out for a couple of weeks or months even between when Daniel Garcia got taken out and All In. But apparently, I want to say Dave Meltzer was reporting that he was being written off TV deliberately so he could have a couple of weeks off or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, MJF won, but wasn't necessarily a win because he ended up with Daniel Garcia standing tall when all said and done.
We did see that. They've done this storyline, like they've done it discreetly, and they've done it quite well. Obviously, MJF took Daniel Garcia out for a good couple of months. Then Will Ospreay and MJF had a really good feud, with Will Ospreay beating MJF at All In to win back the American/International Championship, which is now known as the International Championship. And now Daniel Garcia come back to cost MJF, returning the favour, I suppose. Not the favour, but the what's the word I'm looking for here? Payback. Returning the cost of a payback.
Yeah.
Talking about Will Ospreay though,
match of the night, really, really good match. I think he said, and I want to say it was Rampage, that really good backstage promo saying that wherever he's gone in the UK or whether it's Japan, you're good, but you're not Pac.
Yeah.
And he proved, I think, last night, you're good, but you're not Will Ospreay.
Yeah. A phenomenal match from what I've seen on social media. 20 minutes and 20 seconds.
Perfect timing. I know Dave Meltzer, as he always does with the Will Ospreay matches, was thrilled about that one. Really, really good match. But
so 20 minutes in and 17 seconds in, Will Ospreay started the pin on Pac. And 3 seconds later, Will Ospreay was and still.
Yes, and still. I think the most notable thing, though, during this match, it was a really, really good match. If you haven't seen it, I recommend taking the time out to watch it. But the most notable thing is during the match and after the match, and I think it was in a backstage segment as well during the PLE, or pay-per-view even, as they are in AEW. Ricochet was watching.
He was indeed.
We seen Ricochet debut at All Out, All In even, which we were at. Huge stadium erupted when his music hit. More his Titantron hit, because obviously with a new theme, you're like,
yeah.
Who's this?
The new theme, it started off as just like, really? Anyway, yeah, like you just alluded to, you just said that we knew from the Tron, but we didn't really know from the music. And I believe it says in his music, I don't know whether it's him saying it or they've got like a pre-recorded loop of it saying it. Kind of says Ricochet in like a certain voice in his theme song, which I'm sure his theme song will be uploaded to somewhere. Someone's going to find it.
It'll be on their Spotify page.
Yeah, it'll be on Spotify within the next coming weeks, I'm sure. But you know, I noticed something before the pay-per-view started. Ricochet shared a post of Will Ospreay and Pac's like a, when they promo the show and they say these are the matches we've got, and they have like a carousel of the matches. He shared the Will Ospreay one, so I thought, we might get involved in that. And it so happened that him and Will Ospreay had a backstage segment afterwards.
They did, and Will Ospreay told him to go see Tony Khan and rack up some wins, and then he can have a conversation about challenging Will Ospreay for the international title. I think we'll see that match before the year's out. There's 3 more pay-per-views left for AEW. We've got Wrestle Dream coming up in October in Washington, then we've got Full Gear coming up, and then we end the year in Orlando, Florida, the same day as WWE are holding a major live event there as well. So it's going to be interesting. The rest of the world's going to be focused on Orlando, Florida for a day where we'll see AEW present World's End, where, one of those 3, we will see the match or rematch from the Best of the Super Junior series from, it was 2016, 2017, one of the best wrestling matches out there, Will Ospreay against Ricochet.
You just mentioned about World's End, is the last pay-per-view for AEW of the year. I remember briefly you mentioned earlier, you said that you think Bryan Danielson will lose his title before the end of the year. Could we see it at World's End? Because my thinking behind it is, this is fantasy booking, and this is me thinking randomly now. When Danielson retires, it's kind of like, not the world's ended, I'm not saying that, but like for wrestling fans, it's quite a not a sad time, but you get where I'm coming from. Like he's had an amazing career, brilliant career, phenomenal in AEW and in other wrestling promotions as well. It's going to be a sad moment when he does retire. So World's End and he does lose. It doesn't make sense, but it kind of, I'm sure.
World's End was brought in last year and MJF lost the world title, and then we didn't see him for a couple of months. I see Danielson losing at Full Gear. I think he'll have a successful defense in Washington against Jon Moxley.
Yeah.
We'll come on to that in a couple of seconds. We'll come on to it now, actually. Danielson beat Jack Perry. Obviously, Danielson's first defense of the world title, beat Swerve Strickland in the main event of All In a win or you retire scenario. And obviously, Danielson won. One of the best moments in the year. We see AEW with that. We see WWE with Cody winning the title.
Yeah.
We see 10 years on since WrestleMania and Daniel Bryan overcoming all odds, or Daniel Bryan as he was known then, overcoming all odds to defeat Batista and Randy Orton in the main event of WrestleMania 30, and his first defense was against the TNT champion, who I think is undefeated since he made his return to AEW earlier this year. Jack Perry, he defeated for the world title, and another solid match in the career of Bryan Danielson.
Another solid match, we must say. But Luke, we were just talking about
Curtis
Danielson, Bryan Danielson, and his match with Jack Perry for the world title. I know a lot of people are going to be very, very upset with what happened after the match.
Not really. I mean, we knew that something was up with Moxley, and the best part for me is that we've seen in AEW before, i.e. with Big Bill, when him and Ricky Starks were tag team champions, they lost the titles to Sting and Darby Allin so that Sting could retire as a champion. And then Big Bill and Ricky Starks when they're separate ways. I think we've seen Ricky Starks since, but they never mentioned that they were in a tag team or there was no split. Big Bill just randomly appeared with Chris Jericho, which was a little bit poor booking in my opinion. But yeah, I'm just glad that they acknowledged that Moxley was a part of the Blackpool Combat Club. He could still be. This could be like a heel turn for the group, but it will continue without Bryan Danielson, because after the main events, they came down to celebrate with him very much in similar fashion to what happened at All In, but rather than raise his hand, Claudio Castagnoli decided to hit him with a European uppercut.
He did. And he did do that, but should we talk about what Moxley did to Danielson?
Yeah, because that was the catalyst for the turn, and then we kind of realised, something's going on here. Yeah, we've seen over the past 2 weeks on Dynamite Moxley be a heel and kind of say, I think he said to Tony Schiavone, this isn't your company anymore. Very mysterious since he's come back. He hasn't really made a lot, not that he's made sense, but he's obviously laying seeds for future events on AEW TV. He did turn and then decided to put a plastic bag over the face of Bryan Danielson and choke him out.
He did indeed. Not good scenes for Bryan Danielson fans.
No.
Not good for the world champion either. Where this could lead, I think
it'll lead to a Moxley-Danielson match. We'll see that at Wrestle Dream. You'll beat him there. Moxley, interestingly, did call out Darby Allin on this week's Dynamite. He said to him he just wants to talk with Darby. He's not going to apply any pressure, whatever that means. I'm sure we'll see on Dynamite. But I think that what this will lead to is Darby Allin eventually dethroning Danielson, retiring Danielson, and being AEW World Champion.
Hopefully, I think he will, but he'll hold it for a good while. Darby Allin.
Yeah, a year maybe.
Yeah, I think about a year. That wasn't the only brutal match we had on the card.
Whose house?
Swerve's house!
Well, not really, because Hangman Page burnt it down.
Well, he murdered him, so it's not. His house is.
Whose
burnt.
house?
Not Swerve's house, because it's burnt, mate.
Hangman's house. Whose house?
My house!
Whose house? All Out. Firstly, we've seen Danielson get choked out and murdered by Moxley, and then in a lights out steel cage match between Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland, yeah, we expected it to be brutal, violent. You know, Page has over time become more and more agitated and annoyed with Swerve. Obviously, they had 2 matches at the end of last year where Swerve was the heel, Page was the babyface. Swerve went into the house of Page and spoke to his kid, who's like a year if that, and really, really heelish stuff. 12 months on, Swerve Strickland's one of the most popular, or was one of the most popular wrestlers in the company.
Former world champion.
Roles were reversed. Well, Hangman Page he basically did cost him the world title at All Out. All In. I keep getting my AEW pay-per-views mixed up.
Come on, Luke.
But yeah, one of the most brutal and violent matches you're going to see this year.
It was a really good match. Brutal. It brought everything that you expected it to bring. A lights out steel cage match. What more could be more brutal than that? Steel cage matches in its own are brutal. Lights out though.
So yes, we've seen the lights out match. Page beats Swerve. I think it's the first time that Page has beaten Swerve. I think they've had 6 matches now over the past year, whether that be triple threat matches, one-on-one matches. They had 2 last year. I don't know what the score is between the 2 of them. But yeah, now that feud is seemingly over, I wonder if we'll see Swerve go more heelish. I don't know. But there was an actual pinfall. Page kind of beat him till he couldn't move anymore. The finish came with an unprotected chair shot. Straight to the head.
Unprotected chair shots are something else. They are the killer. Is what I'm going to call an unprotected headshot. I'm going to call it the killer. The killer.
You're going to rename it. It's not going to be known as an unprotected chair shot anymore. It's going to be known as the killer.
The killer.
Anyway, very brief. I'm sure we'll come back with more thoughts on All Out next because you've seen it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll be back next week with our more thoughts on AEW All Out, and we'll be back with thoughts on WWE's debut or SmackDown debut on USA, along with plenty of other things to talk about on another edition of the Are You Ready Wrestling podcast.